Hi there and welcome. My name's Nick from Unshaken Photography Training and I hope you're really well. Today we're going to try and answer that question of why shouldn't I shoot my camera in fully automatic? For many people who are new to photography, they're very much aware that they shouldn't shoot in fully automatic, but it's not so easy always to find out why. So over the next couple of minutes I'll try and explain that for you. Okay, shooting in fully automatic is the default when you get yourself a new camera, and it's very appealing to start out in fully automatic where hopefully the camera's going to sort everything out for you. However, there are two big problems when you shoot with fully automatic, if not three. Number one, when you're setting up your camera to shoot and you're looking through either the viewfinder or shooting in live view mode, you'll see that when you press your shutter button, the button that you use to fire your camera, that you'll get a series of dots or squares appear, either inside the viewfinder or on the back of your camera. Now those dots and squares are showing you what the camera is going to be focusing on, what's going to be the sharpest part of your picture. That's obviously important, it's telling you what you're really aiming at. Now in fully automatic, just about all cameras these days are set to a default that whichever one of those dots or squares can find the nearest object, that is what your camera's going to focus in on. Now that's great. If I'm out taking pictures in and around cityscapes, that type of thing, then chances are I'm probably going to have somebody with me. I'll put them at the front of my frame when I take my picture and everything's going to come out great. The person is going to come out nice and sharp. However, there's loads of situations where we don't always want to take a picture where the nearest object should be the sharpest part of the picture or the main focus. Think about it. You might be taking your pet out for a walk in the park. Yeah? Now if you go into a beautiful open area where it's open fields, you point your camera at your dog while they're running around and they're going to come out nice and sharp. But then you decide you're going to go and have a walk inside the forest or the local woodland. Well, chances are your dog, if it's anything like my one, is no longer going to be the nearest object as they're running away between the trees. And what happens then is you get nice sharp pictures of the nearest tree while your dog might be a blurry little mess in the background. Yeah? So often you'll find that when you start out and shooting, you're so consumed by the camera itself that you're not always paying careful attention to what's happening inside the viewfinder. And every now and then there might just be something that pops into the frame between you and the subject that you haven't quite noticed. It might just be the odd branch, it might be that there's a bit of a wall or something between you and the subject. And what happens is, your subject will no longer be the sharpest part of that picture. And that's a disaster. We can't rectify that in post-production or editing. Now, if you use anything like a Canon camera, I use Canon, but just about most brands, all I need to do to take control of these dots and squares is to press this little button in the top right-hand corner. Nice and simple. Your big issue is this: in fully automatic, Canon has disabled that feature. So it doesn't matter what I do, how many times I press it, all that happens is I get a rather rude message saying this feature is disabled in the current shooting mode. I'm stuck taking a picture of the nearest object whether or not I want to. Okay, problem number two. Now on a lot of your cameras, well, not your fancy DSLR type cameras or your smaller compact cameras, chances are you're going to have a small little flash. Now, as a photographer, I love working with flash. It gives me so many opportunities to be creative. However, I really don't want to be using the little flash that will pop up on top of your camera or these little inbuilt flashes that you see here. They offer me very, very little. And in fact, I would suggest that they're not really there to help you too much. It really helps the manufacturers out of certain sticky situations. Those little flashes can be a nuisance. What tends to happen is that the nearest subject or the nearest person gets bleached out. Their exposure is so bright that they really look pretty shocking. Not only that, everything else in the picture goes really dark on you, so that you end up with this terrible contrast and the photographs look a bit of a disaster. Those little flashes work great at the Olympic Games when 25,000 people fire their flashes together. But as a source of illumination, they're really not much use to you. So I strongly recommend you not using them. Your issue in fully automatic, however, is that if your camera decides it wants to use that flash, very often there's very little you can do about it. You're going to end up using that flash whether or not you want to. It keeps popping up, even if I push it down. It pops up again, even though I push it down. And at the end of the day, when I take a photograph, I'm pretty much recording the light that's bouncing off subjects. And if I use different sources of light, I end up with very different looking results. Now, if you think about it, if I'm in fully automatic and I can't control this flash, I'm not really in charge of how my photograph's going to look. So, as a quick summary of why we don't want to be using fully automatic, there's two big issues, if not three. They are, number one, you're not really in charge of what you're aiming at. Number two, you're not really in charge of how the photograph's going to look, certainly if you can't control the light. And number three, an awful lot of your features of your camera are completely disabled, so there's very little you can do about it. Fully automatic, it's really not great. You need to learn how to move away from fully automatic on your camera. Now, this is a short video. I just want to explain why you don't want to use fully automatic. But if you want a quick tip on a better mode to maybe be starting out when you're shooting, I recommend you shoot in program mode. In program mode, and on this camera, its signature is a little P on this twisty dial. Your camera works in a very similar way to shooting in fully automatic. It'll do most of the work for you. It will sort out the brightness of the picture or the exposure. However, we get some level of control now. That flash will not pop up unless you tell it to. Chances are, on the side of your camera, you're going to have a little flash symbol there or a button that you can press and that flash will pop up. Now, program mode is great if you're shooting outside and it's reasonably bright to a bright day. If you're shooting inside, that's a bit more of a difficult problem. My best tip there, see if you can get that picture taken outside on a reasonably bright day. If you want to know more about your camera though, and you'd like to know more about the creative features and modes on your camera, then why not come along and have a look at one of our courses. Start with the beginner's photography course. We've got 2 modules, both of them that last just a day, and we run those in Chelmsford in Essex, Cambridge City Centre, St Albans, and in Kent, in Rochester and Maidstone. I'd love to see you there. For more information, pop along to our website, www.unshaken.co.uk. Thanks for watching.